Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's Refersion by Fantastic production, Unleashing Influencers for the Holiday Hustle. I'm Nicole Highlander, your moderator today, and we're excited to have you join us. But before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. First, today's webinar will be recorded, so either this afternoon or tomorrow, we'll send out the recording to all registrants, so you'll get that for yourself. We also want you to be involved in today's discussion. So in your GoToWebinar interface, and if you can't find the interface, just click on the round orange icon in your system tray to bring it forward. You'll see a questions field. So please enter your questions here throughout the webinar. It doesn't have to be at the end, and we'll be sure to spend time in the latter part of the webinar to answer those. Lastly, there are some assets for you in the GoToWebinar panel that you're free to download, including a campaign checklist brought to you by Magic Links, and we'll be referencing that in a little bit, and an ebook about how to set up your brand for affiliate marketing called Plan for Profit. Now on to our speakers. We have two experts joining us today. Our first speaker is Andy Hull, brand partnerships with influencer marketing solution Magic Links. Andy, can you tell us about yourself and a little bit about Magic Links?
Of course, yes. So my name's Andy, and there's nothing more I like talking about in October than holidays. So Magic Links is a full stack influencer marketing solution for brand to launch and scale creator campaigns. We're all about data plus storytelling that equals kind of our magic. We have over 25,000 influencers on our platform with over 5,000 brands. We work with brands in a number of ways, whether it just be a regular onboarding where the brand's just paying the commission on sales, or through a casted campaign where a brand has a set budget, 25K, 50K, 75K, and we do a full influencer marketing campaign on their behalf. We cover TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. YouTube is where we started. We see the greatest conversion rates there for sales, which is usually for affiliate people their #1 KPI. And we work with the brand hand in hand to really dig deep to see what they want out of the campaign and advise through our Match Intelligence program, which is our in-house algorithm that matches creators with the highest probability of driving sales to the brand based on their KPIs. And my background is in celebrity endorsements back in my 20s, over 10 years ago. So back then, affiliate world was just kind of, nobody really wanted to touch it. As far as celebrity goes, it was all flat fee. And now with the renaissance, if you will, of mid, micro, nano influencers really having engaged audiences, this is a great way for brands to tap in with the influencer market with smaller budgets.
Awesome. At the end, when there's questions, we might ask you, like, who have you met?
Yes, I've got some good stories, so.
Right on. Our second speaker is Eric Swanson, Refersion's data director and affiliate marketing expert. Eric, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Refersion?
Sure. Well, thank you, Nicole. I have been with Refersion and in the industry for over 7 years. In that time, I've worked with, if not hundreds of thousands, definitely tens of thousands of merchants, ranging from small mom and pops who just started last week to Fortune 500 publicly traded companies, helping them build affiliate and influencer management programs. Refersion itself is a tool that helps these merchants. Essentially, it's a tracking platform that allows merchants to build, manage, and grow the affiliate and influencer program that they're looking to build. It can track all sorts of different e-commerce platforms, connect to payment options, and so forth to really allow you to benefit from this powerful marketing tool.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Thank you both for your introductions. Now that we've learned a little bit about our speakers, let's dive in by learning a little bit about our audience today. We have a lot to cover about influencer and affiliate marketing. So let's get a feel for where you all are with your performance marketing programs. We have a little poll that I'm going to try to pull up here. One moment. So the question is, do you currently have a performance marketing program yourself? So do you work with influencers? Do you work with affiliates? Do you work with both? Or maybe you haven't gotten there yet and you're looking for information on how to get started. So I'll give you all a few seconds to fill out that, and then we'll show the results. Oh, it's exciting. I'm watching the results. What's that?
The anticipation.
It is an anticipation. I shouldn't sing. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to close the poll and show y'all. A lot of folks are working with both influencers and affiliates, 58%. That's outstanding. So we'll be able to provide y'all with a lot of insights for things that you may not know already. We have a lot also who don't have a program yet. So this looks like we're hitting the full gamut of folks that are involved or would like to be involved in affiliate and influencer marketing. So that's fantastic. So let's get into the questions. So I'm just going to ask some questions and give each person a chance to, provide their insights. And feel free to chime in anytime if we're missing something. So this is a free discussion. But the first question is, when discussing performance marketing, it's helpful to sort of establish general terms, and in this case, to understand the general differences between influencers and affiliates and how to approach them. So we know that influencers are generally individual creators with varying audience sizes, so like micro influencers, nano influencers, major influencers, and that sort of thing. And that affiliates are generally people like publishers, coupon sites, bloggers, people with real estate, virtual real estate that they use to promote brands. But what are the differences in how brands should approach each of these, or what types of partnerships they should expect? So that's the general theme of the following questions. So let's start with goals. All right, as goal setting is essential for performance marketing in general, I'm gonna ask Eric first, what types of goals would each type of partnership help to achieve as it applies to differences between affiliates and influencers?
Yeah, and I always, when it comes to discussing like affiliates and influencers, I do always think like, sometimes people think like there's this radical dichotomy, and the reality is there's some overlap. Like you have your extremes, like your traditional media publishers, your coupon sites, and your extremes on the other hand, your celebrity influencers, and then kind of mishes into the middle where it's like, are they a micro influencer or are they an affiliate? Like, don't get too worked up about that as per se, but really with goal setting is kind of one of the most important things, because fundamentally performance marketing doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's part of your overall sales and marketing strategy, and the goals of your program have to reflect your overall sales and marketing goals. So certainly this kind of calls back to that poll question, kind of where you are in your process and also where you are in your overall sales and marketing process. Because if you're a brand new company, you need to make sure you've thought about what are your goals as a whole. How are you getting customers as a whole before you can kind of say, who should I be working with? What kind of program should I be focusing on? I generally kind of distinguish the key goals being a brand awareness goal, a revenue goal, and you have kind of the loose goal, which I kind of call a long-term investment. It's kind of a nice way of saying, I don't really have a goal, but I just want to get something up. And then, of course, your specific campaign, a proof of concept. So everyone, of course, thinks about revenue as kind of the goal, the key thing. But I kind of tend to find for most brands, that's not really the case. If you have a very mature program, a robust program, lots of data backing it, setting specific revenue goals makes sense, where you can say, this month, I want to grow my program's revenue from 5 million to 6 million, because you know the exact steps you need to make that. You know how many new conversions you have to get in, how many new customers, what that will take based on your average customer who you're already working with. If you can't put that specifics on it, I generally advise more the brand awareness goal. It's a goal that can kind of fit no matter where you are, whether you want to work with your larger influencers, whether you have a larger budget, or if you're brand new, because fundamentally it's about awareness. And yes, awareness can drive sales. That's of course the goal. And certainly we're going to measure that, and we'll talk more about measurement and all that stuff later. But realistically, your key goal is not necessarily how much money did I make as much as it's how much awareness. And of course, that's always an amorphous term, but how much awareness, how much traffic, how much and new kind of signups and so forth. That is kind of tends to be a goal that anyone can kind of key on no matter where you are, and that kind of fits with multiple different kinds of of affiliates and influencers.
Right. So like you said, everything does trickle down eventually to revenue, and affiliate and influencer marketing have exceptional ROIs. But we're also talking about SEO, bringing in those new audiences, because it is that we are relying on their audience to spread the word about your brand and increase that traffic and revenue. Andy, what's your take on that for influencers?
Yeah, for influencers, I would say it's kind of like they're expecting a lot. In today's day and age, they want to, be gifted product, be getting a commission rate, and also, be receiving a payment. So it just depends. On our platform, Magic Links, what we've seen work best is just a flat fee payment. So they're doing a casted campaign, but I understand, every brand can't afford to pay that right now, or they're not in their influencer marketing plan where it's like they have the budget to support that. So at the very bottom is just they're expecting commission. So for us, for Magic Links, you just do an organic onboarding, and then you only pay out, I think our standard is usually 10% 30-day cookie window. So say one influencer generates $100, you would just pay that influencer $10 if it's within that 30-day cookie window. So for that, it's, small risk, small reward, if you will, but you could be getting somebody who's just a genuine fan of the brand, who's like, hey, I already have this in my medicine cabinet, I have this in my closet, I'm going to do a get ready with me video, and I'm going to tag the brand, and I'm going to see how my audience reacts. And it's also about like kind of choosing which platform to work with each influencer. TikTok, if you're selling orthopedic shoes, that's a wrong platform. It's 16 to 24. So it's definitely those fast fashion brands that are seeing the biggest ROI. Instagram's still young, but more millennial. And then YouTube really kind of runs the gamut as far. They do skew a little older, but there is higher conversion rates. That happens because people tend to post less. With TikTok, they're posting sometimes one video a day, so that's 7 videos a week. So say you're paying this person, 10 grand, like a really big, and that'd probably be somebody with like 500,000 to 700,000 followers, just what I'm guessing offhand. You're paying for that. You're not paying for any exclusivity for them to like, okay, can you just post this and not post anything else for a week or something? Because everything you add, like, hey, can you do this? Can we do that? That adds up the price. With YouTube, it's going to be integrated content that typically performs best. So maybe they're talking about your brand for 90 seconds in the beginning, but that is, the longevity of that content lives on and on because people are discovering it, and they're only posting maybe once a week, maybe once every twice a week. So that really, the longevity really kind of lives on and on. And for us, we just see some organic content will perform better than what we've casted somebody. So the person that didn't get paid anything, who bought the product themselves, is outperforming somebody who's getting free product, commission, and payment. So it just depends on what your budget is, but statistically for us, we see that when you do a casted campaign, you have approval over everything, approval over the influencer. So you're like, this person actually speaks to our audience, and it feels organic and feels genuine. That's usually going to win, rather than just trying to force somebody with, hey, they've got 10 million followers, we should work with them, and putting all your money there. Because I work with celebrities where a brand had spent $100,000 on somebody, I think, with 85 million followers, and they saw brand awareness, but not return on an ad spend. So it just really depends on what your budget is and kind of what you're comfortable with spending, and the most you can do that for, and basically choosing the right platform as well.
Awesome. So It's good to know your goals as it applies to where you want the influencers to be promoting so that they're going to end in your ROI goals. And also you brought up a good thing about compensation, that influencers and affiliates often actually also require different types of compensation. You mentioned gifting, getting the influencers on board by gifting your product, or sometimes flat fees and that sort of thing. Eric, what kind of compensation do affiliates generally require?
Generally, in the affiliate space, you will see more commission based. So it's essentially a eat what you kill kind of aspect. You do have and that's one of the appeals, certainly for smaller brands and for brands with more limited budgets, because essentially if they don't perform, you don't really have to pay them. We do see, of course, variations of that. We'll see a hybrid where they might get kind of a fixed fee plus a percentage. Certainly, as you're working with more influencers, that's where it kind of becomes more, no, you got to give me money up front kind of thing. In terms of the actual amounts, there's a lot of variability. People often ask, like, what is the best commission rate? The answer is, like, there's no one best commission rate. Generally speaking, most of our merchants are between 10 and 20%. That said, there's a lot of variation. The first thing I always tell people, this is not a loss leader. So factor in your profit margins. If you have a razor thin margin, you're going to give a smaller commission. If you have a larger price point, you can probably also give a smaller commission because they're just going to be larger. If you have a digital or intangible product, you might be able to give a really high commission because it's all profit. Generally speaking, you're not going to see, and this is something we often see with newer merchants, regardless of their size, they think, oh, if I pay more money, people are just going to flock and promote my product. It's like, it rarely is that simple. Like, yes, on the extremes, if you pay like 0.5% commission, nobody's going to promote you unless you're selling $100,000 items. Then good luck. But then you might be able to get some interest. And I've seen merchants who pay 1 or 2%, but they have very high price points or very well-known recognition that will work for them. That's the exception rather than the rule. And I do just quickly want to go back. I know I'm like getting off topic a little bit, but Andy was mentioning this, and I think it's a key thing because people often kind of don't think about it as much as they should. It's that curation aspect, whether it's the channel, whether it's who the person is. This applies whether they're an affiliate, whether they're an influencer. This person's going to be promoting your brand. People will associate them with your brand. You want to make sure you're conveying the right message. And like it or not, there's a lot of things that now factor into that, where we've all seen examples where some brands are becoming politicized, even if they don't want to be. Other brands, like the wrong partnerships, can do a lot of damage. So this is where it goes back to those kind of thinking about your broader goals and making sure the people you're choosing to work with, whether they are your customers and a micro influencer, a publisher, a print media, a coupon site, or an influencer, is in alignment with your overall plans and talking to the kind of people you are trying to sell to, and not maybe antagonizing the people that you're trying to sell to. Again, however you define that.
Got it. Good. That's a very good point. I believe Andy brought up, if you're selling geriatric shoes or something, you don't want to, bring it up to kids. It's not going to resonate. So you want to make sure your messaging is on point. Excellent. Excellent point. So we're getting real close to the holiday season here. And I'm going to go back a little bit to the goal question again. So what should brands keep in mind when setting goals for their influencer and affiliate programs as we approach the holiday season? Andy, do you have
Yes, so definitely fourth quarter is, they call it Black Friday because it puts retailers traditionally back in the black. So for this quarter, it's really make it or break it for a lot of brands. So you really want a good strategy, and your number one KPI should be sales, just because people have the disposable income or are using credit cards for disposable income, or after Christmas, they're getting grandma's checks and everything to spend. So for this kind of time, like views, it's important too. I know for us, for any casted campaign, we traditionally have a 10% view through benchmark. So that means if somebody has 250,000 followers on Instagram, they should minimum be getting 25,000 views. And then as far as traffic goes, the click-through rate really depends on the brand and the category. So it's usually always under 10%. You're not going to find that much of engagement. Over 10% is what we've seen in the past. So it's really important that the content definitely aligns with the brand and the influencer. For us, the messaging should build excitement. I mean, everybody knows that old, Folgers Christmas commercial where the brother comes in. I hope so. I'm dating myself, but this is a traditional 90s commercial that really stuck with me before I knew I wanted to get an advertisement or marketing or anything like that. But for that, like, the medium obviously was television, but that really kind of like built excitement for the holidays and for the brand. And like, I wasn't drinking coffee, but I'm like, oh, we need Folgers in our house. And for influencers, what I'm kind of getting at is the influencers or creator should maybe tell a story or a holiday story that gets people excited with a connection with your product, because then it almost is like a very soft sell rather than a hard sell. It's not like, oh, I use my Nikes every Christmas day, to run around the track or something like that. It's more like, oh, I was so excited, waking up Christmas morning because I only wanted this one pair of Nike shoes and Santa or my parents got it for me. So that kind of content we see really has a chance to go viral and has a chance to just really have high engagement with the influencers following. Also, it's important to know timing. So this year, 50% of people have already started or will start holiday shopping in October. They're hoping for deals. I know we had Prime Day yesterday and today, and I know Best Buy had similar deals. So it's important to kind of, build the excitement through, posting very early. So it may be a little late to engage influencers in October. I know for us, our typical casted turnaround time is 4 weeks. So if we sign the IO on October 1st, all the content should be live by October 31st. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If you're working directly with influencers, it could be 2 to 3 weeks. YouTube typically takes longer just because they're doing integrated content. TikTok and Instagram, if it's just a one-off, that can be quicker to like 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the time. But just know if you're working with a traditional influencer, they have a content schedule, so they're usually booked at least a week or two back. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, maybe doing a gift guide through whatever email platform you guys have that you're sending out newsletters to. Do clickable links on that as well, so you can kind of track sales to see affiliate sales to see what kind of sales you're generating just from your audience already that's signed up for newsletters. Something to consider that's not always on the forefront is Boxing Day and after Christmas. So this is a prime time to get people their money that they got for Christmas, gift cards, whatever, and really use influencers to be like, hey, did you know about X and X after Christmas sale? Because a lot of brands do it, but I just see that more promoted through newsletters than I do through actual influencers. So I think people will have either school off or time off during that kind of dead period between the 26th and 1st. So that's definitely a great time to capitalize on people being on their phones, on their computers to put your brand front forward so they kind of see that. Mm-hmm. And then I would just say in closing, just be cognizant on your budget. Make sure whatever budget you're putting forward, worst case scenario, you do not see any ROAS, it's not gonna hinder any other future budget. So I would just be very cognizant of that. I know creator-driven sales are already up over 30% this year. I don't know if that's due to inflation, but that's what it is right now. So yeah, it's definitely a good time to work with influencers, and usually try and promote like a hero product or something that's not just like run of the mill, like, oh yeah, we sell this all the time, it's not a big deal. Make the audience excited by doing either a really good deal or a really cool product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what you're saying is that at this time of year, your exclusive focus should be sales, just because that is the time of the year. You can do a lot of awareness throughout the year, But then when it comes down to the holidays, you definitely want to push for sales. And we'll talk a lot more about campaigns and that sort of thing too. That was a lot of interesting information there. Eric, anything to add on the affiliate side for goals?
Yeah, just a few quick points. Obviously, number one, like when you're thinking about your holiday goals, just it has to factor into your program reality. Like if you're just starting your program today, it's not going to be much of a factor for Black Friday. Sorry. It's just maybe Christmas you might be able to get a little bump, but still. But that said, it's the time, if you haven't already, you need to be engaging. A lot of the things that Andy was talking about related to influencer, just as true across your network regarding that kind of authenticity, the kind of focusing on products, and giving them kind of a path to follow, whether that's the special product, the product to promote, the deal, build that FOMO, give people a reason to promote. It's also the time to review your data. Who's your top performers? You want to be engaging with them beyond just the normal engagement, the normal cadences that you should, of course, always be communicating across your affiliate network. But you want to see, can you get them to commit to a certain promotion, or understand how they plan on promoting you, or how you can tie into what they might have already have to do. Obviously, it might not be possible to like get them exclusively to focus on you, but you can at least kind of understand what you can expect. For that, you can kind of plan out.
Excellent, thank you. So next, we're going to get into the groundwork that brands need to do to work with productive influencers and affiliates, starting with how you plan to manage your program. Like, somebody's got to do it. So just to take another little sort of temperature gauge from our attendees today, we're going to launch another poll here. And we're asking this time, do you have a dedicated performance marketing manager? So do you have a dedicated person for your program, or a team maybe, or maybe you go through an agency, which they have all the cool tools, or maybe you don't have a dedicated person yet and you're just getting started. That's great too. Just let us know. This is the anticipation again. I get to watch the results as they're coming in, so. All right, I'll give you 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Cool. And it looks like a lot of groups have a dedicated person or even a team. A small handful use an agency. And also we have the folks who are just getting started who do not yet have a dedicated manager. So that's very interesting to hear. We'll definitely talk to all of those answers in what we're going to be talking about next, which is, I'm going to ask this to both of you, starting with Andy. Why is it important for brands to have a manager or an influencer program, for an influencer program? What do they do? And
yeah, so we work with brands in multiple different ways, whether it's the direct person at the brand, their affiliate agency, their marketing agency, but somebody that's really going to own this lane, just because there's so much possible revenue created in this lane that it's important that you have somebody that manages all encompassing. So it's important because they set targets for sales and establish metrics. So on Magic Links, I know we track last click sales, clicks, Magic Links created, and views. So that's really important too, because you can tell, like, okay, we use this influencer, we gifted them, we sent them $50 worth of free product, we tracked their sales through affiliate or in-house, and we saw X amount of sales, or like we didn't see anything. So like, that's good to know, because then you're not gonna work with them again if it's not good. But also this person's going to be in charge of creating mailing lists, creating influencer databases that has all this information. I know internally we use Google spreadsheets, and just like put in all that pertinent information to make sure you're working with the right influencer. And I've seen it best when usually you have an in-house person working directly with an agency, whether it be affiliate or marketing, and they're usually both in tandem. It's, the affiliate or marketing agency will always try and chime in just so it looks like they're earning their keep and everything, but ultimately the directive is going to come down for whoever's running point at the brand direct, because they have the approval rights. And I feel like if you're a small company and you voted no on that poll, that you don't have somebody right now, at least make it part of their job, or like maybe they're doing marketing and social media or something like that, just because this is in today's time, if you have an online presence and you are using influencers, you need somebody to dedicate at least a part-time job so they can manage this. And especially during the holiday, I think it's so important to really put your best foot forward and invest in these right influencers, and not the ones that aren't going to move the needle for you.
Good point. Eric, would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, so essentially, like, the easiest way to say it is that, like, you need to have someone who has ownership of this. It takes a lot of work, and a lot of the work is kind of the unglamorous on the back end. Someone needs to be finding affiliates. Someone needs to be sending those emails and inviting people to join. Someone needs to be curating applications, however they're coming in. And keeping track of all of this before we even get down to planning the actual campaigns and looking at the numbers. It doesn't get, if you're brand new, if you're just getting started, you might not have to have a full-time person yet. But in my experience, the companies that are serious, the companies that have massive micro-influencer programs or really dedicated publisher relationships, they have a person who is the point person, and that's the person who owns. That person reports up to the people. If they don't have full decision-making authority, they can get the DMs in the room and get that done, because you just need, in the end of the day, like, I've never seen, maybe one or two exceptions, this essentially be a set it and forget it kind of channel. Yeah, it just doesn't work like that. Yes, if you're brand new and like you want to just kind of get it out there, what I call the long-term investment, like certainly we have merchants on Refersion like that. And if you balance your expectations, okay, yeah, you have a page, you maybe every week approve people and maybe set up a few automated emails. Sure, you can start dipping your feet into it, but realistically, that's not going to get a ton of ROI. And certainly that is not acceptable if you intend to like work with an actual influencer. It's really just kind of starting to get your feet in. So you need to have a person who understands enough to kind of handle everything and just has that time and kind of that responsibility.
Sure. And another point is, like, this is a very shifting and changing landscape. Social media in general is. So, you want to stay ahead of the Joneses. You want to stay ahead of what your competition is doing, which requires research and, like an investment of time to really find out, what's happening now, what you really want to do. So there is a lot to do, and it's, having a dedicated person on that is.
I remember there's one company I worked with, I won't name names, but they had a very large program, and their manager, she would spend hours every day responding to potentially hundreds of emails, and most of them are mundane little things, but that's an example of, it's not necessarily all glamour, but it has to get done, because that unresponded email, that could be the person who has the next major campaign, and now it's like, oh, I don't want to work at that brand.
Yeah, it's a relationship manager, really. The next big thing to consider, a segue, is to know what budget you're willing to invest. So let's turn to our audience again, just to see where folks are, and ask you guys, do you have a dedicated performance marketing budget? Is it under 5,000, or maybe you don't have one yet? 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 50, or 50 or higher? Is that a huge channel for your company? Let us know kind of where you're at, so we can speak to that. Watch those come in. And share. So a majority has $5,000 or lower budget for performance marketing. A handful has 5 to 10. Our next big categories are 10 to 20 or 50 and above. So that's interesting. So we might encourage you to invest more in this budget later. Maybe, I don't know. But let's see what Andy, what kind of budget is best for managing influencers?
You know, it's definitely brand by brand. Like for instance, if you were just doing an organic onboarding, and so $5,000 would be with a 10% 30-day cookie window. So that would be $50,000 in sales that you're paying out on in commission. So we always want to look at this twofold, just because we can always, worst case scenario, like we had this for like a speaker company, and they had a speaker that was normally $400 that was $99, and they were like, hey, we want to promote this, and they got like $142,000 worth of sales in, I want to say, 20 days, and they're like, hey, can we pause our program now? They can't. So obviously they still have to pay out any sales, but for 5,000 and under, that is pretty much just going to be on a payout basis. For us personally, our casted campaigns start at 25,000. 80% of that fee is going directly to pay for influencer fees, and then we charge a 20% management fee, which is pretty standard, if not like a good deal compared to, you know, like to know it, reward style, and our competitors in this business. I would just say talk with like other departments as well, just because for that 5,000 and under, not much is going to be done other than on a payout scale. And for that, it's big risk, big reward. So, but if you only have certain budgets, like definitely fourth quarter, I would ask for an increase in budget. I know like with all different companies, like somebody's fiscal year was February 1 to, January 31st. So like depending on like, again, I know brands that are like, hey, if we don't spend this money, we lose it for next year as well. Like make sure you have that budget, or if you have extra budget allocated in Q4. Just again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but like this is the highest probability you guys have of driving sales, using influencers, using anybody with affiliate, just because they want to make money during this time too. So they're gonna, and especially if you have authentic, organic influencers that are helping you drive sales, that's gonna help out. It's just hard with 5K and under for me personally. So again, I'd say 25K per quarter as far as like a casted campaign go would be pretty like on our low end. So it just depends where your marketing dollars are going, because it seems like if it's 5K and under, their marketing dollars are being spent elsewhere, and maybe that's working for your brand. You're just like, hey, like this is just kind of like an afterthought, like that we're just going to do this for now. If it blows up, it blows up, but for now we're just going to do this. So there is money to be made in affiliate and influencer, so it's just a conversation to have internally to see, hey, what test budgets can we get approved to try out? Obviously it's not going to work for everybody. I know our two biggest verticals are fashion and beauty, so we see a lot of sales in this, and those are kind of no-brainers. If you have a price point of a 4,000 mountain climber, I had a brand approach me, that is hard to sell online. People want to be there testing it out and everything. Or jewelry, diamonds, that's hard to sell online because people want to see the gradient up close in person. So those, I understand, like those are hard to sell online, but like with fashion and beauty, if your AOV is like between $150 to $500, like that, makes perfect sense for you to utilize this budget for the purpose of affiliate and influencer.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. And Eric, is there a different budget requirement for affiliates?
Certainly, I think generally, yes. Affiliates broadly, excluding like the high-end influencer who Andy and Magic Links works with, because it is more of a kind of eat what you catch, a smaller budget can work, because as long as you understand that, hey, if they drive more sales, you might have to incur. But essentially, that kind of budget can encompass the cost of your tools and so forth. But realistically, it also, to Andy's point, if you have a smaller budget, it means you're not going to work with influencers. Just understand that, because you're not going to work with an agency because you can't afford that. So again, that might not necessarily be a problem for you, but you have to understand kind of where you're coming from. With a lower budget, you should be expecting more kind of of your own curation. So essentially, you have to hit your own marketing list, your own customers, focus more on kind of publishers who generally will work with you if you have large enough traffic, interesting products. Focus on micro and nano influencers who generally don't need the same kind of upfront payment or product gifting that you would for a larger influencer. But of course, this does mean it's going to take longer to be ROI positive. These are smaller people. They're generally going to be driving less traffic, less revenue. It takes time to build that up. Like pretty much everything else, you do have to invest to kind of see big rewards. So it can be, this is not to say that you cannot get started and be successful with a bootstrap budget. I see it all the time. It just has to be, you have to kind of reset your own expectations and perhaps work yourself up. Maybe if you can kind of start with a smaller budget, focus in on kind of an ambassador or customer nano influencer program, kind of prove enough that you can then go to management and say, I've shown that we can be ROI positive. Hey, why don't we, if some of these people might have larger influencers, can we get a budget increase for I can target them and kind of try to take to the next level and and of course we always want all these campaigns to be successful, but also be able to take that hit if it's not. If like we've all heard of like the cases where it's like, oh, they paid $20,000 to an influencer and had no sales. If that would basically send your company into bankruptcy, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
All right, that's insight. That's very helpful. I think, especially since the bulk of folks here are on the lower side. So it's absolutely possible. People do it. So, like it just takes some focus and change of expectations, or not change, just making sure that your expectations are aligned with your budget too.
Yep.
Fair enough. So we have like a little over 5 minutes of discussion points left before we want to open it up to Q&A. So I'm going to change subject just a little bit. As of today's webinar, brands have about 6 weeks before Black Friday to really activate their networks. So what kind of campaigns should they focus on now? And what do they need to do as the holiday gets closer? And you kind of introduced the campaign ideas earlier, but what would you say about campaigns in these next couple of weeks?
I mean, the sooner the better, just because you're going to pay a premium and it's not going to behoove you to like, run around with your head cut off, because it will be stressful the longer you wait. So you want to decide too, when do I want this live by? Do I want this live by Cyber Monday, Black Friday, or I'm willing to like, hey, let's put all of our money for after Christmas. There's less, noise pretty much. Less brands are doing activations during this time. So it's just important to figure out what we want to highlight, what sale we want to do, what product we want to use, and what type of influencer. So like, if you're not an affiliate network right now, get onboarded ASAP, I'd say, and just come up with, all these questions. I have after the call, there's resources you can download. One of the things is like a campaign checklist. So it really asks all these questions of like, okay, what do we want out of our campaign, from the creative to the influencer to, any no words to say during the recording of the content. So it's just, it really comes down to strategy. And I'd say, work the sooner the better, especially if you want to do pre-Black Friday, or if you guys want to do the 1st in December. Just know with any campaign, it's typically going to take about 4 weeks to turn around, maybe 2 to 3 weeks if you're doing it internally. So yeah, it just comes down to timing and just coming down to your directive. And you have to be very specific when it comes down to budget, creative, what influencers you want to work with, and all that good stuff, just because it could take a week to, negotiate or have an influencer get back to you.
Got it. I think you mentioned before that, well, actually going back to the goal thing about, right now our goal for the holidays is revenue. So sales are a big deal. Discounts or sales, as long as they're time limited, you want to make sure that you provide that FOMO, that fear of missing out, like make sure that the folks that that are in your influencer network have all that campaign information now, like don't
Yeah.
wait kind of thing. Awesome. Eric, what about for influencers? What kind of campaigns, affiliates, what kind of campaigns should we be focusing on now?
A lot of the same thing. It's really come down to kind of line up, get your ducks in a row, make sure your communications are out, get everybody aligned. If you're gonna have special special promotions for a particular product and a specific thing tied to a particular campaign, make sure everything's in place for that. Make sure the marketing messaging is aligned up, your inventory is lined up, make sure your communications are out. Target, the more specific, the more targeted you can make it, the more it's going to be successful. And just think through the logistics of what you'll need to. Will you need to create new coupon codes for this? Will you need to create special landing pages? Make sure you've lined up the resources you need to internally to get, if there's dev work involved, if there's whoever you need to get, make sure it's not running around at the last second being like, oh crap, I forgot to do this. That it's all in place already.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, something that people might want to do is like create a holiday calendar for your campaigns for the entire holiday season through the new year, and make sure that you have like benchmark dates for your affiliates and your influencers to hit, make sure that they know exactly what's coming down for every holiday, remind them, make sure that they have all the creatives and everything that you can provide to them, the messaging, all that fun stuff. So
and theoretically, that's part of your broader marketing calendar too, because this is all part of your broader marketing campaign.
There you go. So you mentioned communication. Communication is also a big deal with performance marketing because, as we mentioned earlier, it's about relationships, making sure that the folks who are part of your sales force essentially, are motivated and excited and understand what's coming down the pike. So for influencers, Andy, what would you say is a good strategy for communication with your influencers?
I would say, less is more. Sometimes we want to like, hey, we've got, 500 email addresses of influencers. Let's just blast it all out. And like, it's very insincere. Like you're not really saying anything that's going to be like, oh my gosh, I need to work with this brand. So I'd say be strategic, like segment your list, identify any top performers. Something that love or hater Kim Kardashian did really well with when she launched pretty much all of her brands. She did really cool PR boxes. Like one year for fragrance, she did like a chocolate heart, and you'd like break it with something, a wooden stick, and like you'd have her fragrance inside. Like that's really cool. So if you're sending out any PR mailers to like these influencers that you have already like kind of talked to or have a relationship with, that would be cool too, because they're going to be, even if you're not paying them, they'll be more kind of inspired, like, oh my gosh, look at this PR mailer I just got, and they'll tag your brand so you get some free press out of that and kind of, move the needle. Just this is more of an awareness play. But I would just say, yeah, identify people that are really going to help you out during this time. Sometimes it is going to be through free product and maybe an honorarium, which is just like, hey, we only have $100 we can give you, but like would you be able to do something for it? So it sounds less than being like, hey, we've got $100 to pay for you. Instead, you can be strategic and be like, hey, we'd love to work with you this holiday season. We can gift you X amount of dollars worth of products along with this honorarium of $100, $200, $300. So sometimes that moves the needle and doesn't think like, oh, they're being ripped off. It's just like, hey, I can make a little money and get this product that I really love. So yeah, definitely utilize internal connections you already have with influencers and people that you think will help move the needle as far as sales go.
So make sure that you're investing in those folks that are going to be productive for you and you have a good relationship. Not just throw money at everybody.
Yeah, no.
I mean, if I had that much,
yeah, exactly. That's a good way to go, bro.
I know. And Eric, what about communications for affiliates? What's effective?
That segmentation is also key because you have to communicate differently with different groups. You don't need to barrage influencers. You don't need to barrage a professional publisher or a media. They are professionals. You just need to kind of give them the facts, give them the assets. They're good to go. On the other hand, an ambassador, a micro influencer, and you might need a barrage. They're a different animal. You don't treat them the same as you would the USA Today or something like that, because they're different things. So that segmentation and targeted communications for that you're giving the right message to the right kind of person is key.
Great. We are coming really close to the end of our hour. I'm going to ask one more question, but before I do, I wanted to remind folks that there is the questions field. So we're going to be opening this up for questions in a minute. So please feel free to start typing in your questions in the questions field so that our panelists can respond to those. So last question I'm going to ask is mostly about how competition is fierce during the holidays, right? Everybody wants those dollars. So how do brands keep influencers and affiliates promoting them over their competition? All right, let's start with affiliates this time. Eric?
I think there's a couple key things to keep in mind. It goes back to that FOMO idea. Give them, reward them, whether that's monetary awards. Hey, you hit a certain sales goal, you get more money. Or it's gamification. That often works for smaller influencers and kind of the professionals, but not really professionals, where it's like, hey, if you hit this, you might get free product or free this. So just think of ways to kind of make it exciting, make it fun. People like fun. And that tends to be, yeah, not if you're talking about massive media publishers, they don't care. But anytime you're working with actual human beings, the more you can kind of create reasonable incentives, the better.
That sounds reasonable. And Andy, what about influencers? What motivates them over competitors?
Yeah, I would say like special bonuses, again, honorarium as well, or sometimes internally for our company, we would say like, hey, if you drive $100 worth of sales in the month of December for your brand, for this brand, or usually we do just collectively on, we'll double that. So like do $100, we'll give you $100 extra or something like that. And with affiliate, I feel like that can work well as well, just because you're being like, they're going to be like, oh, like maybe I would do one link, but hey, I want to do 5 links because I want to meet that $100 threshold, so they'll match whatever money I'm going to get through commission.
Excellent, good point, very good point. All right, we're getting to the questions part. I'm going to give folks a chance to add questions there. While that is happening, I'm also going to do our one last poll. We've heard a lot of good information today, but there are clearly things that we didn't get to cover. So if you would like to hear from one of our presenting companies, I'm not going to show the results of this poll. This is just for you to communicate with us. If you would like to hear from one of our presenting companies, let us know. So would you like Magic Links to give you a call and talk to you about what they have to offer and get you hooked up with their influencers? Or would you like to have Refersion contact you about the platform or affiliate marketing, that kind of thing? Let us know in this poll, and I'll let this set for about, I'll let it do for about 10 more seconds, and then we'll get to some questions. I'm looking at questions. For brands just getting started, what can they do from now until BFCM or the holidays? Anybody want? Either one of you can take it.
I'll quick jump in and just say, realistically, you're not gonna if you're just getting started now, you're not likely to have this channel be a massive driver for BFCM. That said, depending onboarding and getting as many kind of like quality affiliates and influencers in, do that, and be just kind of aggressive in understanding kind of, to the extent you identify them and they're in your program, make those connections as soon as possible, see what might be possible. Kind of the earlier you understand what might be doable, the more you can do it. But realistically, be fairly conservative in like your what can realistically be done, and maybe focus more at kind of Christmas and after Christmas instead of kind of being that like BFCM is kind of the key date if you're just getting started today.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned before, the holidays don't end with BFCM, and doesn't even end with like Christmas and the end of the year holidays. It keeps going with grandma's Christmas money, Andy.
And what you do now is going to help in 2024 too.
Absolutely, yeah. Get those affiliates on board and have them start working for you here and keep going.
For sure.
Did you have anything to add to that, Andy, or is that?
No, yeah, I maybe get a good newsletter going out to whoever you're already working with internally as far as influencers go, being like, hey, as we approach the holiday season, let us know if we can send you any product to link through our affiliate. We are offering maybe a competitive, we maybe normally offer 10%, now we're offering 15 or 20%. Something like that, as subtle as that, can maybe, you know, really excite them, be like, okay, yeah, like I'll do product and I'll do linking for this. So yeah, I would just see whoever you have internally already and kind of start there rather than, you know, starting from scratch, being like, okay, which influencers? I'm going to go through Instagram for 3 hours and try and pick out people that might be a good fit. I'd say just start with who you have already.
That's fair. That's fair. One quick question. We got 30 seconds each person. How long does it take to start making money once you've started an affiliate or an influencer program? That seems loaded.
Yeah, oh, such a loaded question. I mean, the only honest answer is it depends, but realistically, I think if you focus on trend lines and kind of seeing things go up, you should start to see, if you aren't seeing sales and other things coming in 60 to 90 days, just rethink what you're doing, ask for help, because while you're not going to be making tens of thousands of dollars in 90 days, you should at least see some activity and some trends pointing in the right direction.
Awesome. Andy?
Yeah, and for us, we charge our one-time fee of $960 to get onboarded, and most brands that are like mid-tier to larger brands will make that back between like 30 and 90 days. If they don't, then yes, it is kind of a come to Jesus moment. Like, let's all like come together and see what the issue here is, because if you're a brand in fashion or beauty, and like it should be between this time. So it might come down to like an online presence issue where you just don't have that strong of online presence. So we turn down people too, just because we don't want to waste their money or waste their time if, according to like our data, things are not going to like do organically. It only makes sense with casted, and then their budget's too small. So yeah, that 30, 60 days or 30 to 90 days plus brand awareness kind of comes into play. So
awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your insights today. It's been enlightening for me, and I'm sure for the folks that have joined us. To all those who have attended, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate you being here. We look forward to seeing you again. You will receive a survey once the webinar closes. If you'd like to give feedback on how we did today, let us know, and also give us ideas for the future. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful BFCM. I can't wait to see us succeed.
thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.